So have you all read Creature from Jekyll Island? Have you all read it?
Read what?
Creature from
Yeah,
Jekyll
the basic
Island.
premise of that is the Federal Reserve is a cartel of the big banks, and it shouldn't be there. Okay, and to a certain extent, I find this debate very confusing. I think part of it is we should have a Federal Reserve. We should run monetary policy a different way. I'm not sure how you do that. I don't think anybody really understands monetary policy. We try things and they don't work. But hear me out and tell me where I'm wrong. If the Fed runs a $200 billion loss because it's paying interest on these reserves, it's basically hiding a $200 billion loss that otherwise would be shown on our books. You know, instead of a $1.9 trillion deficit, we have $2.1 trillion deficit. Is that basically true? We're just basically, I mean, we're allowing this supposedly independent agency, I don't think it's particularly independent, but it's running a $200 billion deficit while fiscally we're running $1.9 trillion deficit. So it's just like, it's a shell game. It's, you know, where are we doing it? Now, I understand the impact potentially on inflation is it allows us to run higher deficits because we're kind of hiding that interest expense. Personally, I don't think that would restrain Congress. I think we'd just run and we will run a $2.1 trillion deficit. So where am I missing this? Because I also hear the arguments from other Fed presidents that, again, if they're not paying interest on the reserves, they'll just buy a Treasury bill anyway. And again, that's where the government is on the hook for another $200 billion. As Mr. Cohen talked about, interest rates are pretty equivalent. So I guess where am I wrong? And briefly, please.
Sure. I wouldn't say that you're wrong. I think you could absolutely look at it, and you could make an argument that you should look at a unified federal budget, and there would be no problem there at all. It is either in one place or the other right now, but it's all in the same place.
Okay. Again, if you could all get your mics a little bit closer because it's kind of hard to hear you.
Yeah.
Mr. Westbury?
Yeah, well, the United Kingdom takes the loss that the Bank of England has the same loss because they pay interest. They're paying more in interest to their banks than they are earning from the bonds that the Bank of England owns. And they take that loss and put it into their deficit. In fact, they've had a big political fight about how they are able to increase spending because the central bank's losing money.
This is problem masking the true deficit.
And what
really $200 billion. Okay, so yeah, I would argue that's a problem. I don't think it's a massive problem. Mr. Westbury, you mentioned that we've increased the money supply. You said 2008, was it?
2008 to today, we've tripled it.
You know, basically a dollar you held then. Here's the fact. I mean, a dollar you held in 1998 is worth 51 cents. Mm-hmm. A dollar you held in 2014 is worth 74 cents. A dollar you held in 2019 is worth 80 cents.
Right.
But the money supply increased a lot more than that.
Right.
So what's the difference? I mean, why isn't it a direct relationship?
Because the Federal Reserve, as they've added money to the banking system through this process of quantitative easing, has instituted heavier capital requirements and liquidity rules on banks. In other words, they have flooded the system with money, but then they have forced the banks to hold on to that money. And as a result, it didn't turn into inflation as much as you might have thought. After the 2008 quantitative easing, everybody thought inflation was going to pick up, and it didn't. However, it did during COVID, and the difference was...
That's just my point.
Yeah.
Everybody thought inflation would explode, and it didn't.
Yeah, it didn't.
Again, that's what's so confusing. I mean,
There's never
this is why I focus on fiscal policy. I mean, to me, the problem is we're running these enormous deficits. We're going to finance it one way or the other. Either finance it through the Fed or we finance it through the Treasury and selling bonds. We're screwed either way. I mean, we need to get our fiscal house in order. We can argue about this. Again, I don't know that we should pay him or not. I don't think it really makes that much difference. I mean, I understand the arguments. Okay, it hides it that in theory would increase inflation, although we thought it would and it didn't. So again, my point would be, I'm running out of time, is we need to focus on fiscal problems, our massive fiscal deficits, And how we finance it, it's kind of a horse apiece.
Let's hear Dr. Cohn, I think, wanted to respond.
No, I just wanted to point out to the senator that there's never been a really tight relationship between money supply and inflation. There's been a long-term relationship, but it's not that tight. And as you and Brian talked, there was a lot of discussion in the 2010s about how this blow up in the balance sheet and in the money supply was going to cause inflation, and inflation was very low the whole time. People were surprised at how low it was. So you can't.
Which again underscores my point. I really don't think we understand monetary, that nobody does. I mean, it's a guessing game.
I would also say that while there's not an exact mathematical correlation, increasing the money supply is what causes inflation. I don't think that's disputed. Mr. Westbrook?
Yeah, I did not expect inflation after 2008 because the M2 money supply was contained with regulatory rules. All right, I did expect inflation during COVID because we relaxed those regulatory rules and M2 exploded. It was one of the easiest forecasts I've ever made in my career. And Chairman Paul is exactly right. M2, it's money printing that causes inflation. And that's what worries me about quantitative easing is we've flooded the system, and if we let it out, then it becomes inflation. And then the second quick point, it's not about interest rates because Chairman Bernanke held interest rates at 0 for 7 years and we didn't get inflation. Chairman Powell only held them at 0 for 2 years and we had 9% inflation. So it's not about rates, it's about the money supply. And that's why taking away the ability to pay interest on reserves will not cause inflation. That's not what causes inflation. It's the money supply that does.
Senator Peters?